Hi. Wow, we're the only ones here. And
Nobody
I was hurrying, trying to get here because I'm like 3, 4 minutes late. I was getting a quick lunch.
Nice.
Yeah, because I eat such a light breakfast. I have a yogurt and a cup of coffee, maybe
Yeah,
around
that's
8
not enough.
now.
Absolutely not.
So I said, if I start teaching before I eat, I'm going to get hungry in the middle of teaching here.
I feel that.
I know. Well, we're going to get started. I
Alright.
know. Now, was it you that was having trouble getting into the YouTube? No, that was somebody else in food service management. What happens when I take this class?
Mhm.
It doesn't always
Upload.
upload on Canvas.
Yeah.
So at times I have to use YouTube. So somebody had a problem with YouTube, but I think I fixed it. Well, we're the only one so far, so I'm going to proceed. But let me make a record. Oh, somebody's joining us.
Oh, yay.
It's Katori. Okay, so that's good. All right. Hi, Katori.
Hi.
Real quick, Katori, you're one of the students that I'm working with the registrar's office. Remind me, what course was it that I was supposed to look for you?
Um, it was my math course, but I actually was able to get it sorted at the beginning of this semester.
Good. So
Yeah,
you're
so
straight. Good,
yeah,
good,
I'm all
good,
set on
good.
that.
Because
Thank
I
you.
know we met, but at the time that we met, they were having position changes in the registrar's office where a lot of my communications were like put on the back burner.
Mhm.
So I was trying to make sure I got everything done. Good, good, good.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
So let's see. Let me find. You're the only two that will be joining us so far. And how was your spring break?
Nice. Not too eventful, just
I know, mine wasn't
stable.
either. Mine was nice and quiet. I like nice and quiet spring breaks, relaxing. All right. And yeah, let me get. Now, there are other people that are still in this course. They just don't come to Zoom, but they've been taking tests and hanging in there. My concern is when we present the articles, they're not going to, well, they're going to have to post their article, and I can always put it in discussions for you to see. And then we can talk about the articles, but them actually presenting, I don't see that happening if they're not attending on a regular basis. But let me share my screen. We got to pick up where we left off. And let me go here and get into my Canvas. All right. Yeah, it was a nice spring break. All right. Food service management. And let's look at our outline. Let's see where we are. And it was a little tight, but I felt we could still stay within our, did we go over that case study? I don't remember going over the case
I don't
study.
think we went over in class.
No,
Yeah, I
no.
don't think so.
So we're going to go back, look at the case study. This is today. I want to finish the work for staffing today. And no later than next week, go into diversity and go into the leadership chapter. We don't have another test. It was right around the corner. I will post it on the 6th, and it will stay up until the April 13th. And that looks like the leadership chapter and workforce. So you'll be tested on the FTEs and so forth. But we have actually 3 more classes before the test is actually posted. So from there, we're here. I want to go back and look at the case studies, and let's see who actually submitted their case studies. Here's assignments and case study number 1. Let's take a look at it. Okay, we got a submission there. Like I said, yeah, they're not coming, but they're submitting assignments. Now that person, no, she withdrew. Yeah. Like I said, yeah, they're just not coming to Zoom. But let's focus on the case studies here, and I'll actually go to Katori first. And let's take a look at the actual assignment. Refresh our memory on who we're talking about. And it's Amy. Okay. Amy is the dietitian. She recently was promoted to Director of Food Nutrition Science, and she's in her office trying to make up the schedule for next month. So it's a monthly schedule. Okay. To me, that's a little far out, but again, it's feasible in some facilities. I used to do a 2-week work schedule, and that sort of was a lot more manageable because when you put a whole month out there, you're talking about at least 4 weeks of whatever may happen. But all day long, the employees dropped in and out of our office and letting her know what their needs and desires are. A few employees can only work 3 or 4 days in a row. Otherwise, they get tired. That's a new one. Most every employee has a shift preference. Some of the employees already are asking to change their regular weekends off. Some of the employees are requesting specific days of the week off. A couple of employees have stated that they have childcare issues and that if they are scheduled on certain shifts or days, they will need to leave in the middle of the day to get their child off the bus or find them a place to stay after school. Okay, after several hours of Amy, working on the schedule, she finally finished it. She distributed copies to the employees, and she hung another copy up on the bulletin board in the kitchen. When she comes back later, she finds the employees have written all over the schedule, switching shifts, days with each other, circling days they do not think they can work, writing notes on the bottom of the schedule to each other. She also finds a number of day off requests in her mailbox and under her office door for days that employees were already scheduled to work. Worse yet, employees are very disgruntled and come to her saying things such as, "I told you I can't work on Tuesdays. Did you forget?" Amy has no memory of several of these conversations. Wow. Amy's got a mess on her hand here. So how can we fix it? So when we go back here, we have, oh, actually, you had typed it real nice. That's okay. I went out and came back in. All right, I'm going to have Katori unmute and share her findings with us. I'll make this a little bigger. Yeah, share what you have suggested for Amy.
Okay. It is clear that Amy will not be able to meet every single employee's needs for scheduling. The best thing for Amy to do to fix the issues with the schedule is to have the kitchen employees write down the days they absolutely need off. Amy should talk with the employees and let them know that she has to work with many people's schedules and which can be challenging, and make it clear to them that they should only request off for the days they absolutely cannot make it to work for reasons such as another job, school, or family needs. Amy should be firm with the employees, but also see that they understand her predicament and her position.
Mhm.
Since the original schedule did not work with the employees, Amy should gather new information from the employees stating their mandatory days off and create a new final schedule. Amy can also talk with some of her employees one-on-one to see if they are possibly more flexible than previously stated. Amy should try her best to accommodate all the employees, and hopefully the new schedule will work out. If the new schedule still is not sufficient for employees, and there are several shifts that need to be covered, Amy should not use the schedule because she does not want to overwork her employees. If the new schedule is not sufficient, then perhaps the kitchen is understaffed and Amy can look into hiring another kitchen employee to fill in the shifts that need to be covered.
Okay. Some really, really good information here for Amy. First of all, she's gonna have to get this information ahead of time. They don't wait till she's in the office that day, making up the schedule, and then everybody coming in and telling her this, that, and all kind of crazy things. So definitely Amy needs to come up with a policy and procedures. Policy and procedures. One thing that Katori is suggesting is that they submit their requests ahead of time. And this needs to be in writing, and we're going to talk more and more about policies and procedures. In any workplace, you need a policy and procedure on most everything. If there is an issue and you want everyone to be on the same page, and if a manager wants to make their life easier, you have to come up with a policy. And of course, that policy is that you submit the days you need off. She makes a monthly schedule. Between the two of you, how far in advance do you think she should set a policy on submitting your days off? What do you think?
I would think prior to making a schedule, there should be a set policy as
Yeah.
to how long employees have. Like I know previous workplaces I worked
Mhm.
at would say you need to tell us at least 2 weeks in advance so that we
Yes.
can
And you
plan
know
or
what?
tell you you can't leave.
Two weeks is reasonable. If you give them a day or two, they'll make stuff up. You follow what I mean? 2 weeks in advance. This is vacation. This is, maybe childcare issues. We know things come up last minute, but when it comes to a schedule, you can't make up a schedule for last minute stuff. That's literally impossible. But you can make up a schedule with information that has been submitted in advance. And the further advance you make it, it will limit that window. You're going to close that window. I think 2 weeks is reasonable. Okay. I think 1 week is okay. But when you get a day, 2 days, no. Okay, that's too close for people to really put in a request, because after a while, everything will be a reason for them to have to take off. So yes, we see a policy in here, a set time, and let's say 2 weeks should be that policy, and a procedure. What would you suggest for this procedure to be as far as requesting your time?
I mean, I would say either in person, like face to face, or sending an email is a written form of communication. She
It's
needs some sort of log to organize because she didn't even remember like if said employee came to her, said something. She needs to keep an organized list
the
of.
procedure should never be verbally. Never, ever, ever. Like somebody can pop in your office and say, oh, I'm letting you know 2 weeks in advance that I need such and such day off. Oh, no, 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 no. Put it in writing. When people have to put things in writing, that also cuts down the number of requests. Verbal can happen at any time. Verbal can change. Verbal can be misinterpreted. I have said things verbally, and I might mean to say Tuesday, and Wednesday come out of your mouth. We've all done that, haven't we? Yeah, you're saying something, and somebody says you said such and such, and sometimes you say, "Did I?" Well, I meant such and such. Sorry about that. Nothing verbal, all written, 2 weeks in advance. I would have a form, because if you don't have a form, you're going to have it on napkins, you're going to have it on whatever, you know. And again, that cuts down on requests because now they have to take time to get the form. They have to now sit down and fill it out according to the guidelines. So that definitely needs to be in place. So this is what I got mostly from what Katori's saying here, is that yes, they have to let her know in advance. She needs a policy and procedure. We basically wrote that policy and procedure. Not hard to do, and we'll talk more about how you get policy and procedure information out to your employees. Let's see what
Like mine's really
Amanda.
long, so I might just
No, no.
summarize it.
Okay, no.
It's
Yeah,
quite long.
we'll do that. Yes. Summarize. Okay.
It's quite long.
All right. No, this is good stuff because you're going to have stuff that we didn't even think of, because we have one policy and procedure, and that's for the submission of days off. Submission of days off. Again, with a policy and procedure, we need to also make sure that they know that nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Just because they submit it does not make it a done deal, because there could be 2-3 people asking the same day off. It could just be, and then we'll have to do what Katori suggested, having to hire more people. First of all, that we should not do, okay? First of all, when we hired people, they should have been hired with an understanding that they were available on certain days. You don't want to interview somebody for a food service position if you're long-term care, hospital, assisted living, because we have people we have to feed 24/7. And if they're talking about getting every weekend off, I don't think so. Because weekends are a commodity. And you have people that have been there for years, they're a new hire, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm not available on weekends. That's going to be a criteria that is going to really not be favorable for that person to get that job. So it's the hiring of your food service workers. You need to hire people that have flexible schedules, but it does not mean because someone has children or elderly mother or whatever it may be that we're not going to hire them, because they need a job also. So we are going to be flexible, but within our means as an organization. So share what you have, Amanda.
Okay, so there's quite a bit. It's been a while. So
That's okay.
yeah, I definitely spoke about the need to implement a deadline for
Mhm.
employees to reach out either with requests for off or concerns with the schedule. Like, for example, if they want to switch with somebody, and all of this needs to be done through Amy, not employee to employee.
Exactly.
It has
So
to
we
all be
need
communicated.
another policy and procedure on a change of schedule. How do you go about changing shifts with someone else? Once something's on the schedule, how do you get coverage? You're scheduled for a certain day, certain time. What's that policy and procedure of getting someone to cover for you? Because that's different than submitting days, 2 weeks ahead of time to be scheduled off. Okay,
Yeah.
so another policy and procedure on how to make schedule changes. Okay.
Another thing was, I feel like, you know, 'cause you want to hear your employees' concerns and you want to make them feel included. So I feel like she may want to have a meeting with all of her employees,
Oh,
because
yes.
what may be unimportant to Amy, for example, someone's like request to take off, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
tired if I work more than 3 days in a row. That,
Mm-hmm.
compared to the mother who has to go pick up her children,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can weigh, I mean, you need to be flexible, but
Mm-hmm.
those are kind of weighed differently. But it also is important to just meet with the employees so you can hear their concerns,
Mm-hmm.
and also for her to clearly just lay out, these are the rules, you have this many weeks to submit it, the
Mm-hmm.
schedule I make up is final. And also what you were just speaking about, when they signed on to the position, were they
Mm-hmm.
expected to work how many days a week and how many hours, and how many days off are they allowed to have, because that all
Mm-hmm.
plays a role into if they are allowed to request off or not.
Yeah, and just that point about the ones that said if they work so many days in a row, they get too tired. I would ask for a doctor's note on that one.
Yeah, that's not a
Yeah,
good reason to shake off.
Were you gonna? I have a schedule. So you work Mondays, you're off Tuesday, you work Wednesday. You're. Yeah, I don't quite get that, because if you were hired, and of course your health can change. Your health can change at any time. I think you need to have a doctor's note. Anybody have any other ideas about that? I really do. Or why well, in private, what's happening, what's making you tired? Maybe they need a change of jobs. I don't know. Maybe they're walking too much on the job. I don't know. I think they need a doctor's note for maybe a lighter duty or something of that nature. Okay, Amy. Not Amy. Amanda, continue.
Um, yeah, I'm like, I feel like that was basically it, and really the focus on holism and considering
Mm,
the needs of all versus the needs of one. So, for example, if you had
mhm,
like, if we're talking about food service industry, and you
mhm,
have like a line cook, and you have someone who's preparing meats or
mhm,
vegetables, and the person who's preparing meats, there's only one person cooking at a time, and they're not available, and they
mhm,
requested so many days off. You kind of have
mhm.
to prioritize what people you need per
Oh,
shift,
yeah.
because there's some people that you can make do without
Yes, yes, you
for a
can.
day, and then there's some
And
people you cannot.
and she should consider cross training.
Mm.
Yeah, that cross training. Now, you can't cross train everybody in certain positions. We already talked about our skilled and unskilled. So a skilled worker, now between your skilled workers, there can be some cross training. Maybe you have cooks that are doing basically the meat entrees, and you have cooks that are focusing on the sides. I think that they should be able to do each other's job. And when I was a food service director, all of my cooks had to be able to complete everything on the menu. and I should be able to take my evening shift and switch them to morning and vice versa. All right. Sometimes you have cooks that are stronger in baking. So that might be a limitation where your baker is on vacation. You know, what are your residents not going to have any baked goods for a week or two? So you need to make sure you have somebody that can fill in, or maybe whatever you're purchasing, you can change your purchasing a little bit, where you can bring in some cooked goods, already baked products, or that's possible. But yeah, in certain positions, there's certain skills. That's another thing. And when you mentioned, Amanda, the holism, they need to understand the importance of each one of their positions. And when they're not there, how are you going to make sure that things are occurring correctly? Because everybody's got to know their job, and not everybody can do everything. Cross training is a key there, so definitely she should be doing that. Definitely, you mentioned the meeting. She's got to have a meeting. I think the biggest thing is the policy and procedure. And I would say something about not writing on the schedule. Did you include that, Amanda?
I definitely mentioned that.
You mentioned it, yeah.
Everything needs to be communicated to Amy,
Because
not
that means
written on a schedule.
Yeah, that means everything you post has a potential of somebody writing all on it.
Yeah.
That should not be. When something's posted, it stays intact, and you don't go putting notes on it and scratching on it and all that. That should be covered in the meeting. She shouldn't need a policy and procedure on that.
Mhm.
I think just verbally, see how it works with them, just knowing that you don't write on documents that are posted. That's totally, we can list how many violations that is. It's disrespectful, a lot of things. I think we covered it pretty good. Yeah, I see your holism there. Yep. And policies and procedures is the main thing. And I'm surprised that Amy was not aware of previous policies and procedures. So if they had a policy and procedure manual, that's where she should have looked first to see what was already in writing. And she should have followed that policy and procedure. And when you have that meeting, you bring that policy and procedure to the meeting to let the workers know this is the way it has been in the past. If for some reason this policy procedure was not followed, I am going to follow it. She could always ask for suggestions, or maybe sometimes policy and procedures need to be updated. Maybe it's not adequate, but definitely, she shouldn't have jumped in there with no understanding of how to go about that schedule to begin with. There no way I would have sat down and wrote a schedule without 2 or 3 weeks getting an idea of what does the previous schedules look like. If that schedule very seldom changes, that means those people have set days on and set days off. And that's generally, or do they have a rotating? Some places rotate. Yeah. But it's whatever works for that organization. Employees should have some input on what works for most of them, but she should see what already existed. So, okay, so I will be reading and grading. Yeah, the two of you did a beautiful job, so you will be rewarded. let me go to modules. And we already know that we need to go back to workforce. So let's go back to workforce. And I believe in the workforce PowerPoint, we have covered a lot. We should have covered, we were in FTEs, correct? And we were just starting FTEs.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, woo, all right, let us get started. All of this we covered. We went over the difference between our exempt and non-exempt. We went over hourly worker. We went over base rate. We also covered differential wage rates. I believe we went over all the differential wages. We even went over how to calculate weekly hours using their base salary, using overtime. We also looked at what a schedule would look like with days scheduled on, and possibly if you're working in a different position that would warrant a higher pay rate if you're covering a position that the pay rate is higher. We talked about salary worker, we talked about burnout, attrition, compensatory time off, full-time equivalents. I believe we need to pick up here, okay? So we're getting into full-time equivalents, and there's gonna be some repeats, which is good because you will naturally think about full-time equivalents as being people, but they are hours. So write that in your notes and just keep reminding you, full-time equivalents is time, not people, it's time. A standard term used to describe the number of full-time positions worked for all employees. So it's not the number of employees, it's the number of hours worked, including full-time, part-time, short hour, and casual. I want you to write this down. When we are calculating annual FTEs, like from January 2021 to December 2021, we would get the total hours worked for our food service department, or we can get the total hours of what our cooks worked or dietary aides. But again, we can get the total of all of our hourly workers in our department for the year. Most places consider a full-time equivalent as working 40 hours a week. That's typical. There are some places it's 35, some places 37. But whatever it is in that organization, that's their full-time equivalent for a week. We're going to use 40 for this class. So whenever you're calculating, you're going to use 40. If you're taking a national exam, you're going to use 40, okay? So if it's 40 hours per week, therefore, they work, let me get this right, they work 8 hours a day, and a full-time equivalent is working 5 days. So 5 times 8 is 40, all right? If it's for the whole year, remember this number. You're going to remember 40 hours for a week, 8 hours per day, 2,080 hours per year. 2,080 per year. Monthly, you divide 12 into 2,080, and you'll get, let me think, I think it's 37.33. See, that's why I tell you to do that, because my calculator was moved. Yeah, take your calculator out. I think it's 137.33. Am I right? All right, let me get to my calculator real quick.
Yeah, it's 173.33. Yeah,
That's what it is. It's 173.33. As you can see, I forgot that number. But if I forget, I take 2,080 and divide 12 into it. So remember to do that to get your FTE for a month. So for a day, it's 8 hours. For a week, it's 40 hours. For a month, it's what? 137.33. And
170.
correct? All right. And annually is 2,080. All right. From there, did we do this before? No? Yes? Nope. Okay. This is an example. And you have 38 employees working different shifts, equaling 28.2 FTEs. How did we get to 28.2? If you have a total of 38 employees, not all 38 are working full time. We have 20 employees working full time, 20 times 40, equaling 800 hours. We have 10 of the 38 working 20 hours. That's 200 hours. We have 8 of those 38 working 16 hours, 128 hours a week. We have to total those hours up, and we get 1,128 divided by 40, because we're looking for our weekly FTEs. That's where the 28.2 comes from. Remember, this is in the PowerPoint, so you can always revisit this slide, okay? So this information has to be given. No way are you going to calculate the 28.2 if, number one, you don't have the breakdown of how many employees are working X amount of hours. Why do we calculate FTEs? What do we use them for? To determine the number of workers needed. In chapter 13, we talked about analyzing a job. So once we write a menu, we have to analyze the jobs that need to be performed in order to produce that menu. Okay? And based on our work analysis, we know that we need so many cooks. And you need so many cooks for the breakfast meal, lunch meal, dinner meal. You need servers. You need, dietary aides. You need dishwashers. You need pot washers. So you have all your different positions. So how many people do you need in each position? You should be able to get a standard FTE. You determine the number of workers needed. And if you are a hospital, long-term care, assisted living, and you have people, residents, people that actually live there for a period of time, you've got to provide breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks 7 days a week. If you're a school, then it may only be 5 days a week, and it may only be breakfast and lunch. So every food service operation has different needs Their FTEs are going to be different. You need to calculate FTEs also to monitor productivity. Your productivity in a food service department should be somewhat stable. Productivity does tend to go up now. Productivity is different in our commercial food service industry. That's our restaurants and hotels, because they can go up and down. It could be the darn weather. But in a hospital of long-term care, they're there. They're sleeping there. That's their home for a period of time. So therefore, we have a census. So our census is going to fluctuate as people are discharged and admitted, and they go out for different reasons, but it's not like our commercial industry. So monitor productivity. In our long-term care facilities or in healthcare in general or our institutional facilities, our productivity is a lot more stable. We see some fluctuations during holidays because we may have additional catering jobs, where you get more production that goes on. You also have to calculate FTEs to monitor effects of changes. If there's a change in menu, it can change your FTEs because the menu is the key to our entire operation. So therefore, if we put more labor-intensive items on the menu, and depending on how we're purchasing, and we have more fresh ingredients that need to be prepped and peeled and so forth, fabricated, then yes, there's going to be more labor hours. Let me tell you, a lot of our food service industry are cutting down on labor hours. Because of technology, they can bring in a lot of their products already trimmed, already in that form that they need to just put it into production in that form. I like to use examples like lettuce. We don't buy a case of iceberg lettuce. We do, but what they do is they buy the bags of lettuce with certain mixes, where you can get iceberg, you can get romaine, you can get the spring mix. You can get red cabbage in there, you can get carrots shredded up in there. We can go on and on. There's a lot of products that are new on the market. I go to different conventions, and they have the exhibitors, and there are products, and I'll go, wow, that's different. You don't even have to peel a potato anymore. You don't have to shuck your own corn. You have ears of corn already shucked. You could probably get fresh corn where the kernels are already off of the ears. I'm sure that there's a lot of different forms. You don't have to buy whole fresh pineapple and have to cut them. You can buy fresh pineapple already in pineapple rings, already in chunks. So that's what we see in the industry, and it does cut on labor. Originally, it was more expensive to go that way. But now we're finding that if you price out labor and that product that's unprepared, you're probably spending money with the labor and that product versus getting that product already fabricated in that form. So going back to FTEs, that's what governs our FTEs to begin with. Okay, a lot of that creates changes. So you can reduce your FTEs if you change the way you purchase certain items. Here's an example with productivity. Productivity equals FTEs compared to work output. So we have 2 8-hour shift diet clerks and 1 that's 4-hour shifts per day. 20 hours times 7 days. So if we take the 2 times 8, 16, you add 4, that's where the 20 hours come from. They're working 7 days a week. So 7 times 20 is 140. And you divide 40 into 140, take your calculators out. And whenever you're looking at any of these calculators, take your calculations, take your calculator out and do the math. 20 times 7, 140. 140 divided by 40, 3.5. We know that these FTEs are weekly FTEs because we're using 40 hours right here. Now, we have 300 patients times 7 days. So this is a hospital, long-term care. They're residents. They're living at this facility 7 days a week. So 300 patients times 7. So we have a total of 2,100. We call them patient days. Okay, patient days. So that's how many patients for a week. For a week. You take the 2,100, and we're taking the FTEs that we calculated, and we divide the 3.5. We know that there are 600 patients per FTE. Now, when it comes to productivity, this has to do with the census. So our census goes up and down. Sometimes our census can be quite down, okay? We have a capacity, and not all facilities are at full capacity, all right? So sometimes, you know, you have such an influx in and out that you just never reach your capacity. So again, we do look at our census, but we know that there are 600 patients per FTE. So that's how we can calculate our FTEs based on productivity. Here's an example here that staffing needs for an increased caseload. So say that they were dietetic technicians, okay? They're dietetic technicians, and originally they had 1,200 caseloads. So that's how many patients they probably had to document on, let's say, on a weekly basis. That's a lot, but let's say monthly. Let's say monthly. Now, all of a sudden, it increased to 1,440. This example reminds me of when you have increased caseloads. It could be that someone resigned and they're deciding that they're just not going to hire somebody. Have you ever been at a workplace where you lose a position, somebody's out sick, someone resigns, someone retires, and all of a sudden they said, well, you know, we can divide this work up, you know, and we just won't hire anybody. That could be the case. So now the caseload is up. Now, our FTEs are 2.5. So those were our FTEs. So when we divided the 2.5 into the 1200, it was 480 clients per FTE. What we need to do is find out the difference. What's the difference when we have that increase? So you take the 1440 minus the 1200, an additional 240 new clients. So what you do is you're taking a percentage of that increase. 240 divide your 480. You're going to divide the big number into the little number, and it's a 0.5. That means that you originally had a 2.5, but it goes up to really a 3 now. So it was an increase of a half FTE. So it's no longer 2.5. You're now at 3 FTEs. And what you should really be doing is hiring somebody part-time. So maybe a half a FTE would be to hire someone part-time, or if you have a part-timer, somehow, give them additional hours, bring their hours up, okay? But there's many ways to, compensate for that increase. Labor management, a proactive approach. So using FTEs is definitely proactive. If you, again, started with the analysis of the work, you determined, how many positions you need to get that menu produced between production, service, cleanup, all of the different positions. You should be able to calculate your daily FTEs, your weekly, your monthly, and of course, your annual. The definition, let's go back to the definition of FTE. It stands for full-time equivalent. Full-time equivalent. An FTE is equivalent of one person working full-time. It's not the person, because a person could be part-time, a person could be short time. We talked about all the different positions that we can hire someone in. We went over that previously. But at this point, we cannot think of FTE as a person, their hours. When it comes to a day, it's 8 hours. Full-time equivalent is 8 hours a day. And of course, times 5, our average worker, we work them 5 days a week. Okay, if you work them 6 days, then they're working over their 40 hours, okay? So they're working 5 days a week, 8 hours, all right? When it comes to weeks, they work 52 weeks in a year. And when it comes to their hours per year, 2080. Remember the 8 hours a day. The 40 is in here, but we know the 8 times 5 is 40. That's for the week. If you can't remember the FTE or the number, it's not the FTE. If you can't remember the hours monthly, 2080 divided by 12, all right? One person, again, equals one full-time equivalent. That's a full-time person. 2 people each working 4 hours a day, 5 days, can also equal one FTE. So you can take 2 people and let them work 4 hours each day. You can take 3 people, couldn't you? And you can have, let me see, 8 into 3, we're roughly talking about 2.5 hours or so. A little weird, but okay. There's some days that we do have people even working less than the 20 hours a week. They might work 16 hours. Here's some tips. FTEs does not mean number of employees. So don't think that way, or else you're not going to be able to calculate correctly. An FTE value stays the same over time, except when you adjust your usual staffing patterns. There are times that when you will adjust your patterns. For example, the menu, it definitely change your staffing patterns. There's other things that could change staffing patterns also, but we usually talk about the menu. Do not multiply it by days, weeks, or months. Don't do that. Remember, it for a day is 8 and so forth. If you know your total number of labor hours for 1 year, you divide by 2080. And you can get your total labor hours for the year from your human resources department. They have a record of labor hours in your department. And if you divide it to those total hours for the year and you divide 2080 into it, it will give you your annual FTEs. And you want to, your FTEs again should be pretty constant unless you made some major changes in that department to change again your staffing patterns. Here's an example. Your department's total labor hours as reported for, this is for a year because it's from January to December, 13,104. So here's your total hours for the year. You're dividing 2080 into that, 6.3. Okay, 6.3. Alternate method. This is an alternate method. This is your monthly fit. 173.33. 2080 divided by 12. 173.33. Don't just round it down to 173. You want it to be accurate, so you use a 0.33. Again, your human resources department will give you your monthly total labor hours. You take the monthly, it's 3,600 for the month. You divide by 173.33, your monthly FTEs, 20.77. This is very important because, yes, annually, monthly, weekly, your hours could be all over the place. For example, let's go back to Amy. Amy's hours are going to be all over the place if she doesn't come up with policies and procedures and get a staffing pattern. Makes sense? She needs a staffing pattern because Amy's going to wind up losing her job because whoever's over her and whoever's over that person, they're going to be looking at those labor hours and they're going to be looking at payroll. And if her hours are all over the place, something's wrong. So she needs to calculate those FTEs, doesn't she? Amy needs to get her FTEs together and get her employees within these FTEs. She needs to have designated full-time workers, designated part-time workers. Maybe some of those people can, they need to be a short hour part-timer. She can call it whatever she wants. But again, put them in different patterns where she has so many full-time, so many part-time, and so forth. Okay, here's another alternate method. This is your daily. This is your daily. Calculate the number of labor hours you require in one day. Because when we have our menus in healthcare, that menu should be where the direct labor should be consistent for every day. Maybe once in a while, you might have one day, maybe it's a Sunday, maybe it's a Saturday, I don't know what it might be, that you might need additional hours for a reason. Maybe you give a special dinner on a Friday night. I had a facility when I consulted. They had fine dining every Friday night. It was really, really nice. They set up a dining room. It looked like a very nice, what would I say, quaint, fine dining restaurant. They had the linen and the china, and the residents were able to order, request a week in advance or so, whether they wanted shrimp or if they wanted, I don't know, crab cakes, just something that they would order at a restaurant. And they used to have additional staff just to prepare their meal. And it you know, they understood it was going to cost a little bit more with labor hours on Friday, but that's what you know, the owners, what they wanted to do for the residents. But these FTEs should be consistent unless you can justify those additional hours. Here's the example for daily. You know that your daily staffing uses 9 people working 8 hours. So you have to know that, plus 1 person working 3 hours. You use some full-time and some part-time employees each day to achieve this. At times, see these 9 people, say you have 1 person out on vacation. You can increase maybe the this 3-hour person, or you can schedule another person in, or this part-time person can share these 8 hours with 2 people. But no matter what it is, you have the same FTEs daily. So here's your 9 times 8, which is your what? Your 72, plus your 3. That's where we got the 75, divided by 8, because a daily FTE is 8 hours. Your FTEs per day is 9.375. So every day that you schedule those FTEs. So Amy, when she's scheduling on the schedule, she's got to schedule the same FTEs unless she can justify needing more staff on certain days or something of that nature. Calculate labor hours per day again. Yes, what you have to do is be able to look at the fact that we use 7 days a week. If it's a school, it might be 5, right? The total hours per week for each of your employees. So again, here's an example of 10 full-time employees. So 10 times the 40, okay? There's 10 full-time people, 400 hours per week, all right? 400 divided by 7. This is the hours per day. You need workers to cover 7 days of the week. The total hours divided by 7, you need to schedule 57.1 hours per day. Again, to understand hours per day, again, think about the numbers in terms of FTEs. They're hours. This is time, not people. Again, the full-time equivalent is the number of equivalents, not the number of people. That would be a full shift. Some departments work with 8 hours as a full shift. Others may be 7.5, might be a full time shift. So it varies from organization to organization, but we're using 8 hours, for class purposes. You figure your FTE, for example, you take your total number of hours and you divide by 8. And so therefore, or if it's 7.5 hours of full time, again, 8 is daily. 8 is daily unless stated otherwise, right? Here's another example. You have 5 full-time employees, each working 40 hours a week, and you have 3 part-time workers working 12 hours. Here's your 5 times 40, 200. You have to add your 3 working the 12 hours, 36. You total them together, 200 plus 36, 236. And you divide by 7, because again, this represents the total for the week. The total for the week divided by 7 will give you your daily FTEs. Once you have your daily FTEs, you divide by 8 to get, okay, this is your hours per week. Once you have your hours per week, you divide by 8 to get your daily FTEs. Okay. Another way to establish your starting point is to work from your budget. Many departments get a budget. They have a labor budget, and you just have to use those labor hours and just work from that. Okay, you have a certain amount of hours, or you just have a budget, period. They give you a dollar amount. And then that's why you have to be able to calculate, how much you're actually paying each person each week to stay within a budget. If you're working directly from your labor budget figures, check total hours and then be sure to subtract management hours. Why are we going to subtract management hours?
Because the management hours don't play into, I guess, like the food service, like the people like working, like it's kind of a separate position.
Because usually your management hours are salaried. And management hours, even if they're hourly, remember, management is they're salaried. So they're just gonna work, they can work 50 hours a week. Doesn't matter, they're gonna get paid the same. You want your hourly workers. You just want your hourly workers to be calculated into this figure. It says the reason is that management hours are constant, even as the census fluctuates. And that's very true. As a food service director, I was salaried. And at times, I'm just going to keep it salaried, okay? Because you're hourly, again, that's that exempt and non-exempt. They're going to have to pay you overtime if you're hourly. So check the total hours per week for management. And then you divide by 7. So first of all, you're going to get your total hours. You're going to divide by 7 to get your weekly hours. And then you're going to subtract your management hours. Very good example here. Here you go. Let's say that you're the manager. You work 40 hours per week, management hours. So 40 divided by 7, it's a 5.7. So you're going to take those total hours per day, and you're going to subtract the 5.7 from it. And you're only using the 36.3. So when human resources give you, those total hours for the week, you want to make sure that you are taking management hours out of there. Okay. So would you like to translate this into FTEs? Here we go with the, these are the 36.3 that we have from this slide. And we're going to divide by 8. Our FTE would be 4.5. And this would be the daily FTE. Establish a baseline ratio of hours per patient day. We call them PPDs. Take your hours per day figure and establish a baseline ratio with the census. The census, again, would be our occupancy. Sometimes we call it capacity. What's that highest number of beds that that facility can hold? Your baseline ratio is just a portion of hours per day to the census. Census is the actual number of patients you are caring for, not occupancy or number of beds. Here's how to calculate the baseline. Hours per day divided by the census equals the baseline. I think we have an example. Yes, we do. Here's that 36.3. And we have a census of 100. So the 36.3 divided by 100, 0.36. We rounded it. And that 0.36 is your baseline ratio of PPD hours to census. So we monitor the census. As I mentioned before, when I was a food service director, I think we had a census of 210. That could be our capacity, but we were never always at 210. We were probably at 200. Sometimes we might have been at 190, 195. We stayed close to 200. I don't ever remember being at full capacity. You begin keeping tabs on your census. So we get that on a daily basis. Every morning we would get the census. As often as you have shifts in the figures, use your baseline ratio to find out how many labor hours you should really be using. Here's how. You multiply the baseline ratio by the actual census. So here was our baseline ratio right here, 0.36. Yes, our census is going to fluctuate on a day-to-day basis, but we're still going to use that 0.36. And here we are, our census is 80. It was 100 one day, it's 80. The 0.36 times 80, 29 hours per day. Now, what we need to do is take advantage of when our census is down. We're down like 20 beds. We don't want to lay people off It says, note, this is fewer labor hours per day than you had in your baseline. If that census remains low, somebody's going to speak up, and it's going to be upper management, top management. It's going to say, our census has been down 20 beds for the last 2 months. You need to cut your hours in the food service department. They'll tell nursing, you need to cut your hours in the nursing department, so forth and so on. All right. It says the census went down, so you need to decrease labor hours, and we're running over. Okay. Read this. These are the do's and don'ts. The main thing is, soon as you see that census go down, you automatically start assigning additional job responsibilities. That's when we did extra cleaning, extra things that we weren't able to really get to like we wanted to when our census was up. So we'll pick up on this next week. And guess what? We're actually done. Read this so that I can start diversity next week, and I'll be on time. It just tells you the do's and the don'ts, and read that over. There's certain things that we just don't want to do, because then we're not going to be able to provide that quality service, production and service that we need. What I'm going to do, I am going to, and let's see if they're here. Yes. Did you complete your practice FTEs? Not yet. You might have. We'll go over your FTEs next week, and then we'll look at the answers. So make sure you do your FTE sheets. And we'll start next week going over the FTEs, and then we'll go into diversity. Sounds good? All right. I think we're still on schedule. Email if you have any questions, okay?
All righty. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take
And
care.
I believe next week I present.
Ooh,
Yes.
Let's look. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I have everything.
No. Let's look real quick. Oh, I should have just went up. I should have went up. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, because I believe I was set March 30th.
Yeah, here we go. I don't have any presenters. I have the first presenters on the 13th. Let me see. Let me see if I made a mistake here.
Okay.
Here we go. It's the 30th. Yep.
Yeah. So that'll be next Tuesday, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's next week. You're right.
Alrighty.
You're right. Yeah, my little schedule's wrong. We have to follow this. You're right. And hopefully Tram will post hers. Okay. But yeah, you'll present, and then hopefully we'll have these postings. And Katori, you're not until April 27th. All right. Now that's what's making me forget, because we have all these gaps here. Thank you, Amanda, for reminding me.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up just to make sure, because I'm like, I just want to make sure I'm doing
That's
it.
right.
Good.
Very good. Yes, we're going to follow the schedule here. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Take
All right,
care.
bye. Have a good week.
All right. You too.